and welcome to another edition of the Big Nick Energy Podcast. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, and comment on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Pods, and Podbean. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram, join our Facebook group, and join our Chalkboard, which is a message board app designed specifically around gambling and sports. Our page is at 88 members now. Once we get to 103, we'll be doing a Knicks ticket giveaway to an upcoming game. I have a very special guest today. He's an NBA reporter and writer for CBS Sports, formerly of 24/7 Sports and Bleacher Report, a New York University grad and New York's own, even though his primary team of coverage is the Lakers, but we won't talk about that. Sam Quinn, how you doing today, sir?
I'm good. I'm really glad I get to come and talk about the Knicks when things are going well for them.
Yes.
It makes my life a lot easier with my friends and, the people around me in New York. So, that hasn't been super common during my career, but we're in a good place right now. So, yeah, everyone's super excited about Josh Hart.
That they are. I actually forgot to tell you this before we started recording. I'm Joey. Vin is my producer. I just use this thing because we report on his. But like you said, the Knicks are actually doing well right now, which at the beginning of the year, I was actually trying to scroll through all of your old articles, seeing if you actually did like a full breakdown of what you thought for everyone. I couldn't quite find the Knicks, but just to recap, they're 33-27. 6th place in the East at the All-Star break, 2 games back of Brooklyn for 5th, who's 34-24, and a half game up on the Heat in 7th, who are 32-27, just 1 win back. They've played 1 less game. To paint a picture of what the 3 teams have done recently, the Brooklyn Nets have lost 2 future Hall of Famers, including one of the 20 best players of all time, and are 3-5 this month. The Knicks acquired, like you said, Josh Hart, and apparently are now the team to beat in the East. I'm totally joking, but it seems that way for a couple days, right? And also he's turned into some weird combo of Tony Allen and Steve Novak, which is not what he was in Portland. And the Heat didn't make any moves at the deadline, and they lost 2 in a row, including to the aforementioned Nets. Sam, all 3 teams after the All-Star break have the same exact combined win percentage for strength of schedule at 512. What do you expect these 3 teams to do in the end standings between 5th through 7th? Do you think it remains the same? Do you think it varies a little bit?
I think where I'm leaning right now is Knicks in 5th, Heat in 6th, Nets in 7th. But it's going to be pretty close. The reason I lean Knicks is that getting Josh Hart has given them so much rotational versatility.
Absolutely.
To where you don't have to close games if RJ Barrett is not shooting well, or maybe this isn't a Quentin Grimes night, or dare I say it, maybe there are nights where Julius Randle is taking a bunch of bad jumpers and you want to cut his minutes a little bit. They're now so deep with just guys that you can trust to, at the very least, you know what to expect out of them now.
Yep.
That I don't feel that way about the Heat, who are pretty thin, and, Jimmy Butler is going to miss X number of games in any regular season stretch. And the Nets are a total mystery. I would assume that the Nets are going to be better than people are expecting. At the very least, their defense is so good now, or at least has so many good pieces.
Right.
That you get a certain baseline when your defense is good that I wouldn't, they're not going to fall to 10th, right? I think 7th is almost the floor for them, given the cushion they built up when they had Kyrie and Durant. So I wouldn't expect them to fall too far, but the Knicks are the reliable team in that trio, which is kind of weird to say. It doesn't sound right, but they've played so well even without Mitchell Robinson. And now that they have Josh Hart, they're never going to be in a position where, it's a back-to-back and we have 4 guys who are sitting out and this is a schedule loss. The Heat are going to have nights like that. Yep. The Nets are going to have nights where Cam Thomas shoots 3 of 16 and they just can't get any offense. The Knicks are the team with the highest baseline, and when you're talking about that middle tier of the Eastern Conference, that's what I'm looking for. So I would say right now, I feel pretty good about the Knicks getting into 5th.
What is you mentioned you think the Nets could fall all the way to 7th, which would be the play-in, obviously. What do you think is the lowest the Nets could potentially fall to? I know Atlanta's in 8th, Toronto's in 10th, and the Wizards are in 9th, or I got those 2 mixed up. They're really close. How far down do you think the Nets could falter to?
I think 7 is as low as they can go, because right now they've got a 5.5 game lead on Atlanta, and I don't know why I should expect Atlanta to surge in the second half. We've seen these wild stats all year about how every few weeks it's they're exactly 500 and they've scored exactly as many points as they've given up, and their net rate, all these things that just basically say they're the most average team in the NBA.
Yep.
The Nets are 10 games above 500. It would really take a lot for them to fall below 7. So I think 7 is right around where you'd expect. Now, in a one-game setting, could Atlanta beat them in the play-in? Absolutely. I don't think the Nets are going any lower than 7 in the regular season.
That's fair. That's fair enough. And then to go back to the Knicks, I know I sent you the questions earlier, so this actually helps both of us out a little bit. Who do you think the Knicks fans should want the Knicks to match up with in the first round of the playoffs? And I know when I wrote this to you, I implied it in two different ways, right? So one way, which is the more fun way, honestly, to talk about, for your job, for the storyline, for the writing aspect, who's a better Knicks first round matchup? And then as a fan, for us wanting to make it to the second round and as far as possible, who do you think we should want them to match up for? And is that the same team? Why and or why not?
Well, the storyline is Cleveland, right? Like, don't you
Yeah.
want the Donovan Mitchell series? I mean, putting aside the fact that, they almost traded for him, it's also kind of a rematch, isn't it? Because they had in Dallas and Utah last year, Jalen Brunson beat Donovan Mitchell and outplayed him in that
Destroyed him.
series.
Destroyed him.
So I don't know. I think as a Knicks fan, if Brunson can do that again, like you're probably thinking, we're feeling great about not trading for Donovan Mitchell. Now, personally, I'm thinking I would have rather had Donovan Mitchell, but
Yeah.
well, you would have had both, but I would have made the Mitchell trade, especially with Barrett not making the leap this year that you would have liked. But that's probably a matchup as a Knicks fan you'd probably like to see. Now, who do I think they match up better against? I like that Philly matchup for him. I think I like it more than most because I
Really? I'm
trust
so
Mitchell
worried about
Robinson.
Embiid, man, no matter what. I've seen Embiid
Now,
beat Mitch a lot. A lot.
now the issue you're going to run into more than anything is that Mitch is going to foul out of those games so
Yeah.
quickly because that's what Embiid does. Other than that, they have a lot of defenders that like I think would hold up pretty well against Harden. And I think in the playoffs when Harden's not getting quite as many foul calls, you're in a better situation. I think that's like quietly a pretty interesting matchup for them, right? I mean, I think I'd favor Philly, but the Knicks are so deep and the Sixers have so many just quiet playoff vulnerabilities. Like, are they really going to do the Montrezl Harrell thing in the playoffs? Is Doc really going to go down that road again? Are
He
they
does
sticking
every
with
time they're
Melton
in
as
the
the starter?
playoffs.
Like, how are they allocating the guard minutes in the playoffs? Is it really going to be Melton as the 2 and Maxey coming off of the bench? Like, when in doubt, my general philosophy is I want to see Doc Rivers mess something up in the playoffs. Like,
Yeah.
that's a coach that I want to be against in the playoffs. So I think I like that Philly matchup more. Now, Philly would be favored, but I think I like that Philly matchup more than Cleveland, who Cleveland might just be a juggernaut with the way they've been playing lately. But from a storyline perspective, give me Brunson versus Mitchell part 2.
I love that. I mean, I would agree the same exact way. I was saying in a spaces recently with a bunch of other Knicks fans that one of the main issues that we might run into if we saw Cleveland in the playoffs is that their size. And we've seen Julius Randle, when you have time to game plan against him, that he does struggle against teams that are larger than him. Like he's good at bully ball against guys his size or are skinny. But between Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, and then obviously they don't have Love anymore, but just those two harassing him inside, it would make his life way harder and resort him to being almost purely a jump shooter or a distributor. And he would just wouldn't be able to bang inside the way we usually expect them to, especially on the offensive glass. And I think Mitch and Hartenstein would run into a similar problem going up against those two in a 7-game series.
I agree, but I still have nightmares of DeAndre Hunter giving Randall so many problems in the first round a few years ago. I don't know if that is purely a we can scheme Julius Randall out of a series regardless of who our defenders are, or if that was a fluke. Now, you're right. Cleveland is a scary matchup for him. Tobias Harris, not quite as much, although quietly, Tobias Harris been better on defense this year than I think people have given him credit for. He's not good and he's not a stopper, but he's physically stout, and that's like an interesting matchup for him. I do agree with you though. If Mobley and Allen are on him, that's going to be a real problem, and you're going to run into a lot of like, can he make 52% of his mid-range jumpers over a sustained sample? Because if the answer is no, if the answer is he's going to make 39% or
Yep.
31%, then you're in real trouble.
Or can he make the right decision over and over again in the fourth quarter? Is he going to turn back into Beyblade Randall, which is what we ran into in the first time he was in the postseason? He would just spin into triple teams, as I know you've seen him do many times in his career. He spins into a triple team and either tosses the ball away or he actually just gets stripped, which is the worst case scenario because then Cleveland loves getting out on the break.
Well, now also you have the situation. I mean, I'm going to pivot slightly here. I know you mentioned this, so you want to talk about it. Was now he's in the 3-point contest. And
Yes.
look, it's probably harmless. I just want to be clear. It's probably harmless. But do you really want to encourage him to shoot these threes?
I saw
Right?
you
Like,
tweet that today. I thought that was so funny. Do
my
you think
Knicks
it's like the home
fan
run
friends are
derby
losing
thing?
their minds.
Yeah. You know, how,
I
like
don't
every dude
think
that's
it's
in the
going to
home.
mean anything. I just don't want to encourage him. I don't want him thinking in his head, yes, I am a 3-point contest competitor. I should act the same way that Buddy Hield acts.
I got third place, man. I beat Tyrese. I got 40%
Oh,
in me.
God, that's the worst. You want him to finish at 8th. You want him to have the Michael Jordan performance.
So does Vegas,
where
man.
Jordan
He has the
made
worst
5
odds.
shots in the whole thing.
Yeah. Do you think there's a chance that it's like the home run derby thing where it's like if a guy does too well in the 3-point contest, they just start chucking? Is there like history of that? I have no clue.
I have not researched this thoroughly, and I want to just say no. That said, like, there are a lot of guys, and ultimately, like, I want to be clear, players, you want them to be confident.
Yes.
Like, that is a healthy thing. That is a good thing. But for somebody like Randall, maybe a little less confidence in a specific area would be warranted because you don't want him taking all those jump shots, right? There's a certain amount that he does need to take because it changes the way that defenses are going to handle him and handle the rest of the team. But you don't want Julius Randle thinking, I should be taking an outsized percentage of my shots from behind the arc or more dangerously in mid-range. I mean, honestly, I'd rather he shoots threes than too many mid-rangers. But, yeah,
Well,
I mean, I
why...
don't think it means anything, but it's something that's, like, lingering in the back of my mind.
I mean, that's why his true shooting percentage is higher this year than it was even in the All-NBA season 2 years ago. It's because he's taken the mid-range so much more out of his game. It's either his 3-point shooting's worse, but it's either threes or layups or attacks at the rim, which is just obviously the old Mike D'Antoni, James Harden. That should have always been how the NBA's played, either get the easiest or the best shot possible. But it took us until the 2015s to get here.
Like,
yeah,
that's what was why, like, I went into last season thinking there's no way he's going to sustain this. Because in the empty gyms, he shot some absurd percentage from mid-range. And it wasn't even the whole season in the most improved our year. It was like the first 2 or 3 months where he shot like 50% in the mid-range. He plummeted, but by then his numbers had been padded so much and the narrative had been built and they were the 4 seed that, oh, of course he's an all-star, all-NBA. He's going to get the big contract, most improved, whatever. And then last year he kind of fell back to where he typically had been. This year is where you see the more encouraging sustained improvement, where I can look at Randall and say, okay, I don't think he's a consistent all-star, but I do think that the way he's playing is sustainable enough that, like, he's going to be a positive impact player for the rest of this contract.
Agreed. I honestly just wish we could brainwash him and tell him every quarter is the first quarter of a game and he would be a 40-point scorer.
Yeah.
I know I saw through your Twitter that you also are a gambler a little bit. So if I'm gonna read you the 3-point contest
more than
odds,
a little bit, my friends.
Perfect. I bet literally every day. I actually admit that to my mom today because she sees me post all the time. So it's the first time I've ever told her that I'm actually like a hardcore gambler. I just win mostly on soccer.
Yep.
So I'm gonna listen.
No. What I tell my mom is I only tell her when I win. She doesn't know about the losses. Yeah.
As long as she doesn't see the report at the end of the year that whatever
she doesn't see my tax return.
Yeah, you're good. Forget it. For all the listeners, anyone hearing out there, Buddy Hield plus 420 is the favorite. He's won before. Dame, who's actually getting the most money going in, plus 470 when I took this screenshot. Jason Tatum plus 550. Herter plus 550. Lauri Markkanen, the hometown hero, plus 650, who actually is where I'm probably going to lean my money towards. Halliburton plus 650. Hero plus 800. And Randall just under 10-1 because Cat was the odds-on underdog last year and won. And Vegas did not want to make a 12-1 thing again, even though Randall would be 13-1.
You know who suggested that?
Did you?
I wrote in my gambling preview last year, bet on Towns, and that was my big win of the whole thing. I have this theory that All-Star Weekend in general, and by the way, I just want to point this out. I tweeted this too. I bet on Team Giannis to win because I think All-Star Weekend is so fundamentally random that
LeBron's
you should just be
though.
taking. Yeah, it's All-Star. That's random noise. That doesn't mean anything. All I'm saying is an All-Star, just take the odds because it's so random that you should at least try to maximize your profit. And that's what I argued with Cat last year. 12-1 was egregious. So I just said, go take him. And sure enough, he wins. Team Giannis, they haven't even drafted the teams yet. Right. And he's plus 130. If you treat that as a coin toss, if you treat that as 50-50, then you're getting a 30% odds boost on the profit.
Yeah.
So my philosophy there, I'm not picking Julius Randle. Let's get that out of the way. But Tyler Hero at 8-1? Yeah, sure. Why not?
Right. That's why I'm thinking Lauri Markkanen at plus 650. I looked up all the So he's home, right? There's only 2 arenas in the whole country that elevation's actually a thing. It's Utah and Denver. This dude practices in Utah's court year round, and he shoots 45% at home. And no one else on the list actually looked up every single player that played in Denver and Utah this year. No one else shot over 40% in their games in those two arenas. I'm taking Lauri Markkanen plus 650 because that's great odds, and he's the hometown hero.
You have done way more research on this than I have, but that is very smart. Like, if you're gonna research the 3-point contest, you've nailed it. I think that's great logic. Go for it.
Thank you. Appreciate that. To work our way on to the next thing, unfortunately, when everyone hears this, the Rising Stars Challenge is going to already be done. So just 30 seconds. What team are you picking? Is it Team Pow, who looks like the best? And if not, why?
Team Pow is the best roster. I bet on Team Joakim, which is all the bigs. The way I looked at it was...
And with Quinn Grimes for everyone listening.
There's not... Well, and Quentin Grimes, and I think they have one other good perimeter guy. Josh Giddey's the other one they have.
Yep.
The way I looked at it was, nobody's really going to try in these things. They never do. But I figure the Team Joakim is so long that at least they can get hands and faces on jumpers and maybe alter things in a way that the smaller teams can't. I wouldn't advise you to bet on Rising Stars, no matter, which team you like. I also took Team Joakim because they're a plus 310, as opposed to Team Pow, I think, was plus 150. Yep. And then I can't remember what Team Darren wasn't far behind. And
plus
then the G-Leaguers were...
Darren's
plus G-Leaguers
195.
are 5-1, right?
Yeah, I'm actually taking. I'm putting a half unit on Team Joakim and a half unit on the G Leaguers because it's like
smart. Yeah.
Either way, you win money. 3-1 and 5-1. I mean, that's a come up no matter what. Again, anyone listening, you could have skipped that part, though. By the way.
Well, you can honestly, there's a part of me that thinks you take the G Leaguers just because they're motivated.
They're gonna try the hardest, and it's gonna be Scoot Henderson's first time going against real NBA players. Like that means something.
Oh, I think I'm going to do this. I know we're after the fact. Let's not linger on this, but I think I'm going to put a little bit on that.
Hey, that's why I had the conversation with you, just for both of us to put money on it, and then anyone listening tomorrow can see if we were smart or dumb. And then the most exciting, or what used to be, I actually didn't do the skills challenge at all because there's no Knicks in it, and it's a total crapshoot. Just bet on the rookies every year; they try the hardest.
Bet against Team Giannis. That's all I'm going to tell you. Don't bet on the Antetokounmpo family to make jumpers.
No shot, or else they would all actually be playing minutes.
Agreed.
The slam dunk contest, which at one time was the pride and glory of the NBA All-Star Weekend, and ever since Aaron Gordon and Zach LaVine, not a single player that has chances of making All-Star teams actually plays in this thing. The favorite this year is Mac McClung, who, for anyone that does know who Mac McClung is, he's a G Leaguer, played at Georgetown, I think Texas Tech. He has a 48-inch vertical. Just to put it in perspective, Jericho Sims, who had the 4th highest vertical in combine history, has a 45-inch vertical. So this dude is 6'2" and jumps 3 inches higher than Jericho Sims off the ground. So he's the favorite. It went from plus 270 to plus 150. Sims is now plus 280. Kenyon Martin Jr. is plus 290. And Trey Murphy III is plus 380. I'm assuming you are betting on either McClung or Sims, but if not, Sam, who are you taking and why?
I wasn't going to bet on the dunk contest because I don't want to say the dunk contest is rigged. It's not, but it kind of is. After looking back on the Dwayne Wade, Derek Jones thing, that was kind of the moment where I just thought they're kind of going for a story with some of these things. I'm going to avoid it. I think
that's why McClung is almost a lock, honestly.
Yeah, that was sort of what I'm thinking. If I was going to go against McClung, I really like KJ Martin because, he's just – I think the reason his odds are so low is just that he's not famous, right? So I wrote a story today, we can get into this, about my solution for fixing the dunk contest. McClung, the G Leaguer, let's make that clear, has twice as many Instagram followers as the other 3 guys combined.
Yeah.
McClung, they brought him here to be the headliner of the dunk contest. This is not just some random dude they needed a body. He is the selling point of this.
He's been TikTok famous well before he was in the NBA or G League.
Exactly. So I agree with you. I do think he's probably going to win. Aside from the fact that he's a great dunker, I think what's gonna happen is we're gonna be watching the events on TNT, and then they're gonna start by being dismissive of McClung, the G Leaguer, we don't think about him, yada yada yada. Then he's gonna have a really cool dunk in his first dunk, and then we're like, oh, okay, the G Leaguer's legit, and that's how it's gonna go.
Oh yeah, it's building up. You can literally write it in a 4th grade play. Honestly, it's just so ridiculous. I know, talking about something that you actually complained about on Twitter before that I agree with wholeheartedly, and it's been a major talking point today. We actually skipped it over on accident. The whole picking teams thing, right? And them not picking the reserves second, even though if you're picking the reserves first, the last reserve is still the last pick, quote unquote. And now with the way the starters are set up, you're just setting up for Lauri Markkanen to be the last pick, which it doesn't matter. These are literally like 15, 20 of the best 25 to 30 players in the NBA this year. You're not hurting their feelings. Why are we making such a big deal over who gets picked last in the NBA All-Star game?
You make a great point with Markkanen. I think I don't know if that's really bad or really good, because you're also going to have the big applause in the arena for him when his name comes up last.
It's like the
That
WWE
said,
thing. You make the guy pop last.
That said, I don't know how much your listeners know about the Streisand effect. Essentially, the Streisand effect is the idea that you can take something very, very small and make it a much bigger deal by trying to cover it up. So I don't think anybody really cared who the last pick of the All-Star draft was. James Harden last year was like an exception because of the Durant thing and the trade. Like,
Yep.
That was its own animal. In a normal year, I don't think anybody really cares. But now, by shining a light on this, what you're telling us is that the players were complaining. And if the players are complaining, like, yeah, that is so freaking soft. I don't know what to say. Like, that's just ridiculous. This isn't kindergarten. It's the NBA All-Star game.
You're not getting picked last in 8th grade dodgeball. No one is throwing the ball at your face. You're $100 million and a 4-year person.
Well, also, you know what they call the person who graduates last in his class at Harvard Medical School?
What's that?
Doctor.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter.
You know what they call the last pick in the All-Star draft? An All-Star.
Yeah. I was really hoping you were going to say the dumbest doctor, because, I mean, that would have been hilarious. But yeah, they are still a doctor. It does not matter. Well, also, anyone that's listening to this is most likely a Knicks fan. We all understand Julius Randle is the last or second to last pick. Not only is everyone in the All-Star game like slightly more better or more reliable in various ways, if you just took the two guys that are the captains, isn't Julius Randle just a poor man's version of both of those dudes? He's not Giannis. He's not LeBron.
I feel for it because, aside from the fact that I think Jalen Brunson is more deserving, Jalen Brunson would have been a pretty high pick. Jalen Brunson is like an all-star crowd pleaser. Not that he has the traditional all-star type game, right? Like, it's funny. My favorite, I don't even want to say my favorite, like the thing that stands out about Brunson is his footwork. And I remember doing research on Brunson maybe a year or so ago. I was writing something about him. If you search Jalen Brunson footwork on YouTube, the first video that comes up is 27 minutes long.
Oh
it's
my
just
God.
One of my favorite. I don't even know what to say. Whoever put in that work, bravo. But like that is the opposite of what you typically think of as an all-star type player. You think of all-stars as like the flashy passes, the athleticism, the dunks, whatever. That said, I think Brunson is the sort of guy that, like, having done this in New York, there would have been so much respect that he would have been one of the first players picked.
Yeah, agreed. Also, I'm sure I didn't watch the video. Now that you mentioned that, I'm going to 100% watch it after this because I'd rather watch
27 incredible minutes. Could not recommend more highly.
I would much rather watch that than Celebrity Game anyway. I'm sure it's all in the mid-range too, which are just two things you would never watch in any scenario anymore. That's fantastic.
Brunson is special. He's his own thing.
He's literally, so I tell all my friends this all the time. I don't have any kids yet. I'm only 5'8". I didn't get to play basketball growing up, really. My kids are going to watch Jalen Brunson tape growing up. I'm assuming they're all going to be under 6 foot and they're going to play basketball. They're watching Jalen Brunson before as much as before their eyes bleed. Honestly, I'm just going to show it to them all the time.
My kids are going to be punters. That's my plan. That's how I'm sending my kids to college.
Kicking and punting. Kicking and punting's where it's at, man. You get
anybody can do it. Like, I don't want to. I'm not here to disparage special teamers, but like, I'm sorry. I watch football every Sunday. I don't look at like, insert punter X and think like this is some world class athlete that I couldn't replicate. Like, no, I'm teaching my kids to punt from day one.
I love that. The punt, pass, and kick is the punt, 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 and punt.
Oh yeah.
Sam, to get off the All-Star game. Oh, well, you said you already bet on Team Giannis, right? Because the odds plus 135. Yes. I might just follow you on that just for the sake of the odds, honestly.
Yeah, that's all it is. If you think of it as a 50-50 proposition, which I would argue any All-Star game is because nobody cares, then just take the odds. It's that simple.
100%. I mean, and plus, if you're getting plus 135, when you bet the coin toss in the Super Bowl, it's minus 110 either way. When you bet a normal spread, it's
you're not even paying a vig. You're getting a profit opportunity.
Exactly. I'm taking that.
You know what? Here's the other thing. Even if you don't think they're going to win, what if they jump out to like an 11-4 lead?
They
Then you
cash
just
out.
live bet Team LeBron and you've guaranteed yourself a profit.
Yeah.
That simple.
Also, just bet the over. It's going to be 145 to 140. It doesn't even.
I used to do this. The over line is so preposterously high that there was a stretch for several years where it was the over every year. Now that Vegas is adjusted, now the line is so high that the under is probably a safer bet, especially
That's
with the
sad.
Elam ending. I haven't tracked this, but there was a stretch where it was the over every year. That has passed.
Once they added the Elam ending, I'm sure they just got rid of that.
Yeah.
They're like, what's the over under right now? 1 point below.
Yeah.
To get off the All-Star game, I know I sent this to you before. It is from a tweet that you had a few months back. It's October 15th. It's a tale as old as time. The time is 3 years. It's been a tale as old as 3 years for all Knicks, Warriors, and Heat fans. Comparing Jordan Poole, RJ Barrett, and Tyler Hero over and over again. You compared the contracts because someone else tweeted and you quote tweeted that you had Poole first, Barrett second, and Hero third for the best values of their contract. Just for everyone to hear and remember, Jordan Poole had signed a 4-year, $140 million deal. Tyler Hero signed a 4-year, $120 million deal. And Knicks fans know that RJ Barrett signed a 4-year, $107 million deal. So based on your opinions as them as players, still being able to be future assets, and their performance over the past 4 months, do you still have Poole first, RJ Barrett second, and Hero third, or has it changed?
So Hero's probably been the best of the three this year. I don't know how much I'm going to factor that into my long-term projections because Hero is so small and has such clear defensive deficiencies that like I can tolerate that with Poole because I think Jordan Poole can one day be a primary ball handler. I don't think that for Hero. I don't think Hero is ever going to be the guy who you're like starting him at point guard. He's running his 40 pick and rolls every game. I don't think that's really feasible for him in the way that it is for Poole.
He
I
wants
think
to be,
Poole
though.
has athletic gifts. Yeah, well, of course he does. But I think Poole has athletic gifts that Hero just isn't going to have access to. I don't know what to do with Barrett because we go through this every year where he's terrible for the first 6 weeks. Then he's better, but I don't quite know what his long term outlook is. The defense comes and goes. The best version of Barrett defensively is great. We don't see that every night. He's also like, I hate to, because he's been so durable. I hate to factor this in, but man, Tibbs players tend to age in dog years. Like, if you're 24 at playing for the Knicks, playing for Tibbs, do you have to worry that like at 30 he's going to be washed? I don't know.
There's a
So
chance
I
with their
guess
lineup now that that's not the case, though. With adding Hart, it seems like
true.
he's going to split up their minutes. It's just Brunson and Randall that are going to be running to the ground.
Yeah. Although honestly, I think you could even argue that Quickly and Grimes have proven so much this year that I don't even know that you have to play Brunson that much. I get it with Randall. I'd rather they'd give minutes to Obi, but I'm sure you talk about this every episode. Like
A
that
lot.
ship seems to have sailed.
I mean,
But
if it's like the way any team is set up, if with Tibbs, like, you know, you're not going to run them 4-5, Obi's not a
yeah.
3. Every team in the league is set up. If you have an all-star at one position, he's getting 34 to 36. His primary backup gets 12 to 14, and it is what it is.
I mean, I would just say Quickly has been so good on both sides of the ball that like I might even cut back on Brunson a little bit, make sure that he's a little bit fresher. But that's a conversation for another time. I think right now I would probably go Poole, Hero, Barrett because I just feel so much more uncertain about what Barrett's going to be because Barrett is stagnated, right? Like, how much better is he today than he was 2 years ago when they were the 4th seed?
He actually
A
seems
little
like he's
bit.
worse a lot. He seems like he's
Like,
worse. His defense seems like it's just not there all the time. His defense at least was there a lot back then.
I think on balance, he's developed enough offensively that I would say probably a little bit better overall, but not enough for years 2 to 4.
Yeah.
Like, that is kind of scary to me. So my inclination is I see a very clear path for improvement for Jordan Poole. When Jordan Poole is doing this for Orlando in 2 years, or, you know, insert San Antonio, whatever, because they're going to trade somebody, and the way things are going right now, probably be either Draymond or Poole.
Yep.
And I kind of think it'll be Poole, but I'm not reporting that. That's just a guess. When he has a chance to like be a normal high usage ball handler, I see the path to him getting a lot better. I don't see that as much for Barrett, especially on the Knicks, where he's at best the third best guy, and realistically probably not.
Right.
So I guess I move Barrett down to third, but we'll see. His saving grace is his size, because everybody needs guys at that position. So
Yep.
I'm not saying I'm not ruling anything out for Barrett, but this has been, let's say, a lateral year for him.
I know we can always say it. He is always the youngest of the three. He always will be the youngest of the three of
Yes.
them. So, can I just ask you one follow-up question about the Poole Draymond thing? Just based on their age and contracts, why would you assume that Poole would be the one moved instead of Green?
For a few reasons. Number one, where are you getting value for Draymond? Like, if you try to trade him, I mean, maybe Portland, just because that's been rumored for so long and he's such an obvious fit. I don't know where you're trading Draymond and getting this big package back, but if that's like, if you're, I'm trying to figure out what their goal is here essentially, because at least if you trade Poole, there's a pretty clear path to let's contend for 2 or 3 more years around Steph. You'll get a big package back for Poole. You can get players that probably make more sense. And Poole has made sense, to be clear. It's just he's made sense as the third option 6-man,
Right.
which you don't want to pay 140 million for that. So maybe you trade him. You get 2 or 3 guys that maybe fill out your rotation a little bit more, improve the defense, get it back to where it was during the dynasty years. Hasn't been at all this year. Maybe Peyton helps that. So ultimately, I mean, the other thing that we have to kind of look at here, we don't know who their GM is going to be next year. I mean, I don't even want to say we don't know. We kind of do know, right? It's going to be Kirk Lakeup.
Right.
Like, what is
Where
his
did the
priority
Bob
going to
Myers
be?
thing come from? Why is that a thing now?
Well, I mean, I think it's just sort of the inevitability of when the assistant GM is the owner's son, the writing is kind of on the wall.
Even if you've
So
won 5 titles.
exactly, like, I don't want to. I'm not reporting anything, but like that's just sort of a common sense thing, right?
Yeah.
Where I would assume that Kirk Lakeup is going to be the GM next year. If Kirk Lakeup is a first year GM, do you really want the first thing you do to be trading team legend Draymond Green? That seems like a really big step.
If you're a
I don't
first
know,
year
like,
GM, aren't you kind of worried that Draymond Green's going to bully you into doing things you don't want to do?
true. I mean, all I'm going to say is this. Given the way this year is gone, where there are 500 team, injuries have been a part of that, but they weren't great before the injuries.
Right.
You're a 500 team, and Kuminga is the only one of the young guys that has really popped this year. Poole obviously had great moments last year, and the talent is obviously there. I think you kind of have to come to grips with the fact that the 2 timeline thing is it's not really viable anymore. Either you're going to compete for championships or you're going to lean towards the youth.
Right.
I would think just like this is not a one-time champion, right? Like this is Stephen Curry. This is one of maybe the 10 best players ever. It's a 4-time champion.
The
I
best
think
shooter of
you
all
have a
time.
responsibility to go. And the Lakers kind of did with LeBron and D'Lo, right? Like, don't get me wrong. I think they could have done more, but even the Lakers kind of said, we're not really going to fully waste a year of LeBron here, are we? So I think that's ultimately where we're going to get to, where the Warriors are going to say, we have Steph, we kind of have to go for it.
Right. And I mean, if LeBron showed them anything, in essence, if Steph stays in as good a shape he is, which if looking back, honestly, 12 years ago, if you told any of us that Steph Curry would play as many games as he did with his ankle problem in college, absolutely unbelievable in hindsight. But if LeBron showed us anything, Steph might have 3, 4 more years like this. And it's like, that means your title window's still open for that time. So I get where you're coming from. I don't know if I would agree with that. I would try to put Draymond, if it's possible. I'm not trade machining anymore. I didn't trade machine much for the Warriors. If you can make Draymond be like the money add-on to make you get to a higher like paid player in a package like that, then
this is why I think they're kind of, I don't want to say they're devastated, but I think they would have really loved it if Durant had dragged into the offseason and they could have gone for it,
yeah.
because that would have been the organic solution to all of this, right? Where no, we're not trading away our beloved icon, or no, we're not trading away our future. We're trading for Kevin Durant, who we know we can win with because we've already done it. There
Yep.
isn't that obvious way to do it now, right? And by the way, like, I harp on this a lot. If you're a team that's hoping to trade for a superstar, the reason, among others, that Phoenix was so smart to trade for Durant when it did is we are going to reach a point in the near-ish future where Oklahoma City is going to join the bidding, and Houston is going to join the bidding, and Utah is going to join the bidding. And
Whoever
I mean, look,
gets
this is a
Wemby's
Knicks
going to join the
podcast,
bidding.
right? Like this is a Knicks podcast. It's relevant to the Knicks. The Knicks are trying to trade for superstar.
We're always
They've
in the bidding.
accumulated a lot of assets, but the Knicks can't outbid Oklahoma City.
Right.
The Knicks can't outbid Houston. So if you have a chance to get a superstar now, before they get into it, that's going to be pretty relevant. And that was the biggest reason I questioned them for not getting Mitchell, because maybe Oklahoma City wants the next Mitchell. And if Oklahoma City wants the next Mitchell, they're probably going to get him.
I'm just worried about, we brought up Cat before because of the 3-point contest last year. I'm just really worried about it being Karl Anthony Towns and the front office and the coach that seem married to each other again do something that the coach does not like or appreciate, and literally already had problems with this player in the past, and that would just be calamity.
Well, just the other thing, like, I don't want to, like, I think there is this lingering feeling that we have where, remember, like 5 years ago, where all those GM surveys were saying, who's the number one player you would want? Karl Towns.
Yeah.
I think there's still something a little lingering onto that. Whereas now, when you look at the way basketball is played in 2023, he can't really defend in most schemes in the playoffs. And he's a very, very valuable offensive big man. Don't get me wrong. I would not be trying to build an offense around any center besides Jokic.
Agreed.
Right now, like, and Embiid. I don't know. I wouldn't feel great about being the team that gives up.
He's the third best. He's just a
picks for
distant
Towns.
third. He's
Yes,
such a distant
exactly.
third. It's not worth it.
Where I'm at with Towns is, like, I think there are going to be teams where it makes sense. I'm not sitting here thinking, like, the wait is over, we got Karl Towns.
No shot.
He's not that guy to me.
I agree entirely. I'm so glad you said that. I want to put it out into the ethos that Knicks fans also feel this way for the most part. I know you are a Knicks fan that covers the Lakers, but
I mean, he's a CAA guy, so that's going to linger, and that's going to be something that Knicks fans are going to have to, I don't even want to say worry about, because he's a very good player, but, like, I think the longer you wait with this, we're waiting for a star, the better that star needs to be. And, like, Donovan Mitchell would have been a home run 2 years ago, or not even whatever it was, 8 months ago.
Yeah.
But right now, like, if you get to 2 years, and that's what you're probably thinking, we want Luka, right? Like, we want somebody who's, like, such a
let me get Devin Booker.
So long. Exactly. You've got to get somebody at that point that you're thinking, this is not just an all-star. This is somebody who's going to make us a championship team.
Right. Agreed entirely. Sam, I can't thank you so much for the time you've given me so far. I have this one last question that I know I sent you, and it relates to the Knicks only a little bit, but enough. What is more likely, the Dallas Mavericks to not make the playoffs or the Washington Wizards to make the playoffs? To paint the picture for everyone, the Mavericks are currently 31-29. They're 6th in the West. They're only 2.5 games behind the 3 seed, but only 2 games ahead of the 11th seed because the West is a cluster F right now. And the pick the Knicks have from the Mavs is top 10 protected. So not only is it lottery based, it's not lottery based, it's literally top 10 based. So they'd have to get in the lottery and then jump up from there because they wouldn't be the 10th worst. They'd be like the 14th worst. So that's why I didn't word it as which is more likely for the Knicks to get this pick or not get this pick, but just to throw it out there. And then the Wizards are currently 9th in the East. They're 4 games behind the Knicks in 6th and 2.5 games ahead of the Bulls in 11th. The Wizards pick is lottery protected. And I know the answer for the picks is that the Wizards giving us their pick is more likely than the Mavs not giving us their pick. But for the original question, what's more likely, the Mavs missing the playoffs or the Wizards making the playoffs?
I would say there is a 0% chance the Wizards are going to make the playoffs, because even if they stay in the top 10, you're really going to bet on the Wizards to win 2 play-in games?
Well,
really,
they're not that far from
the
8th is the thing.
Well, I guess, but Atlanta is so much, like, I don't want to say so much better than them, but, like, you go into a play-in game where one team has, 6 of the 8 best players in the game, 6 of the 9, I guess, because the Wizards do have their quote-unquote big 3. I don't know. I feel pretty comfortable that Atlanta would be favored against them. I don't know. I just can't see the Wizards winning 2 play-in games. Like, that's where I'm at. The Mavs are so volatile that you can convince me of almost anything, but, like, I really just, in a 1-game setting, I don't trust the Wizards. I'm sorry. They're not going to make it.
I forgot the exact number. I'm just going to say 23 because most teams are around 23 games left. Let's say the Mavs have 23 games left right now. How many of those games do Luka and Kyrie actually play together?
I would say most of them, but, like, the big thing is their defense is going to be so bad that
it's terrible
if they have a bad shooting night, they're vulnerable against anybody, right? Like, if they're giving up 125 points to the Rockets, all it takes is we shot 21% from 3, and that's a loss. So they're going to be so volatile over these next, I don't know, 2 months, whatever it is. My thing, and I feel on a, it's a higher scale, higher stakes. I sort of feel this way about Phoenix too, but Dallas especially really needs an offseason to just sort out the rest of the roster. I think Phoenix could win it all, but I'm inclined to think they need an offseason. Dallas really needs an offseason because they're not like one or two role players away. They're like one or two $20 million a year guys away. They're just so thin and they have so little defense. Like Dallas needs a major move.
They really do. I mean, they're showing, if nothing else, like you have you'll always have the two best offensive players on the court. If you're giving up $130 and those two guys score 80 points combined, you're not getting 50 points from Reggie Bullock and Tim Hardaway and company. It's just not happening. And that's what they're going to run into for the whole year. Also, defense takes longer to game plan and actually implement in practice than offensive schemes do, especially if your offensive
100%.
scheme is the two of you take turns, then we'll make motion around you.
Yeah, the offense is going to be great. The defense, I mean, this year it's going to be bad. We'll see. I think if the Mavericks are going to like meaningfully compete for a championship, it's probably next year.
That makes sense. That does make sense. Sam, before I let you go, since you did say you're a big gambler, I don't usually do futures or anything, but is there anything big on the futures market you're looking for postseason wise in the NBA? Do you have any championship odds out there?
The Western Conference odds, because of the Durant trade, are really out of whack to the point where I just got Golden State at plus 950 to win the West. And for all of the issues that Golden State has gone through lately, their starting lineup has still, by plus minus, by a wide margin, been the best lineup in basketball this year.
Especially
so Golden State plus 950. I also grabbed the Clippers at plus 575.
I saw you tweet that today.
I really hope that does not mean Russell Westbrook's going to be on the team, because if Westbrook is on the team, I think their odds probably have to go up, right? Like, I don't know. I'd much rather bet on the Clippers without Westbrook than with him. We'll see, but I just think there's a lot of opportunity in the West when the favorite right now is a team who hasn't played a single game together yet.
Right.
So that's kind of what I'm looking at. If you're a fan of, maybe you like Memphis, maybe you like Denver, I think now is your moment to strike.
Because their odds went down so drastically with Kevin Durant and Kyrie
exactly.
both going there.
Now, look, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not sitting here saying Phoenix can't win it all, but I would be skeptical of the team that hasn't yet played together on February 17th being the best team in the West on May 17th.
Agreed entirely. What about the East? Do you think there's value now in Boston or Milwaukee with the Nets combusting entirely? They're at like plus 410
missed your
and 430.
Moment. The moment to bet on Milwaukee, and I'm thankful that I did, was when Middleton was out and when Holiday was out and, Giannis was missing games. I got them at plus 390, and I felt very, very good about that at the time. I'm waiting
win the East
for
or the title.
Win the East.
Okay.
I'm waiting for a dip on Boston, but I'm sort of resigning myself to the idea that it's never going to come. We've waited this entire season, and their odds have really never slipped below. Like, even they were the favorites in the East, even right after the Ime Udoka stuff. So, if you want to bet Boston, you might just have to accept the odds aren't going to be great. And I might do it as a hedge on the Bucks, but I would not pick any other team in the East. It's going to be one of them.
I think they've done studies before. I know Bill Simmons and them have always talked about it. I've listened to him since I was like 10 years old. They always talk about that if you're going to bet the favorite to make it through the playoffs, you're better off just betting them game by game or series by series.
I agree. And this was the case last year with Boston where they lost game one of their second and third series. So if there was a moment like that would have been the time to strike. So I agree with that.
Sam, I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Plug anything you want. I know a lot of my listeners probably already do follow you, but just for the sake of it, plug your Twitter and where you can find your articles and stuff.
Yeah, I'll just read CBSSports.com. I'm on Twitter, Sam Quinn CBS. But yeah, man, pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you. And again, for everyone, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and comment on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Pods, and Podbean. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram, join our Facebook group, and join our Chalkboard, a messaging board app designed specifically around gambling and sports. Our page is 88 members now. Once we get to 103, so only 15 more, we'll be doing a Knicks ticket giveaway. The Knicks are going to make the playoffs, knock on wood. Peace!